I'm going to throw in, of course, my superficial knowledge in training, or actually the superficial part of my knowledge in training, which is what pertains here. Aerobic means with oxygen. And so any aerobic exercise, for those of you who are interested in understanding how these two modalities of training work, aerobic or aerobic, I always pronounce it strange, I know. That's why I just call it cardio. We all do, right? So cardio is any exercise that uses, of course, the body, and in its intensity is sustained for a long period of time. This period of time is determined by exceeding 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. So here are the examples. If you walk, that is definitely some cardio or aerobic exercise. If you jog, that's also. If you climb, also. All these exercises or movements of the body that can be sustained for longer than 3 minutes and to the capacity that you're capable of. Some people go for hours, and that's still exercise with oxygen. Now, anaerobic exercise is when there is no oxygen. Funny enough, you may be surprised to know that when you lift weights, you're not using oxygen, not in the muscle. Yes, there must be some exchange there, but it's not the force of lifting the weight is not a sustained exercise, and that's why you deplete yourself within a minute or two, depending on the tension of the weight, or you can do this also with elastic bands and so on. Just anything that is unbearable for more than a minute, I would say, or 2 minutes, and your muscle is already tired. So that's a form of exercise. And the difference between the two is that aerobic exercise is just for, as we know it, for the heart. Not quite for the heart alone, but that's the one that is being exercised the most. Just because I'm in this vein, and I should have called this episode Nutrition and Training Part 2, but just because I'm in this vein, and I know this is helpful for a lot of people, when you engage in aerobic exercise, there is a heart rate. You might have seen it as THR, target heart rate. You want to maintain that heart rate at a specific, depending on your age, so please do your homework. Depending on your age, you want to keep it at a certain pace. Why? Because if you just walk, yes, your heart is beating obviously faster than you would if you were just sitting. So you're walking, your heart is beating. Okay, yeah, great. That's a sort of exercise for the heart. But maybe, I'm just going to throw a guess, like in my example, it goes up to 80 heart beats per minute. But if I start jogging, then it would climb over 100. You see, and it's still sustained. There are factors here. The reason why you can't jog for more than 5-7 minutes if you're untrained is because you don't have the capacity yet, but you develop it pretty fast within a couple of sessions. You'll see that your heart adapts fast. But the amount of time doesn't really matter. It's just that you push the limits of yourself, and we're going to find part of that information here in Ra's material, so I'm not so far departed from from the topic. Maybe this will help actually to understand that, and it definitely will. So, all right, stay with me here. Cardiovascular exercise should be around, yes, whatever amount of time you can, always pushing the limit when you can. But I would say in 100, just a little bit over 100 heart beats per minute. And like I said, this depends on your age. The older you are, the fewer heartbeats should be, your rate. But it goes gradually, like 1 heartbeat less per year. I'm just being thorough here. Whereas anaerobic exercise, or we call it lifting weights, but like I said, weights doesn't account for elastic bands, for example, which you can do, or calisthenics. These are forms to a degree. These are depending on your conditioning, the amount of muscle mass and strength that you have. It can be a form of building muscle, and that's the key difference, which is something that, to me, obviously Carla had a huge deficit of: muscle mass. Muscle mass is important because muscle mass is alive, and it's a healthy addition to the body to a certain extent. Of course, we bodybuilders used to think of more muscle, but the body doesn't want more muscle. It's cumbersome. We just do it for the aesthetics and the sport and so on, which is kind of silly sport. Me being an ex-bodybuilder, I know. And to think of the people who use hormones to increase their muscle mass even further, then they go even beyond healthy, of course. I was never enticed to do such thing, but I understand the people that does and do it. I have nothing against them. I'm just saying that it's a huge sacrifice. I actually honor them for doing it, because that's a huge sacrifice. I wasn't willing to do that. Not for the sport. It was fun, to just build muscle naturally, but yeah, just covering all of that for no reason. In any case, lifting weights or anaerobic exercise is a form of higher intensity for shorter periods of time, and which, just like cardiovascular exercise, it's meant to push your limits. Why am I saying this? Because if you're just lifting weights and you're not feeling tired at the end, you're not reaching that point of failure, then you may not be doing much. And speaking of failure, for those of you who are gym goers, and if you're going to failure all the time, that's another way to ruin your progress. You always want to be conservative and moderate. You want to get to the limits, but don't push it all the time. Reaching failure is appropriate sometimes, not all the time, and you can certainly train and build more muscle without reaching failure ever. But it's a useful measure. This is the smart way and the smart approach to things. I find that there's either, on one extreme, people who don't get to the higher intensities that they need, and on the other side of the spectrum, people who get there every day on every set that they lift. And it's not a smart way to go in either direction. Moderation, the middle way. See, Gautama was right even here.